The maximum jobs in India are created by the small and medium enterprises who have been given a significant benefit with reduction of tax from 30% to 25%. The larger corporates and the number of jobs that they were creating were significantly less, are also getting benefits of various exemptions, which will gradually be phased out. And as they are phased out, they will enjoy lower taxes, is what the Honorable Finance Minister has already spoken about. The fact is the larger companies were already at an effective rate of 25 point some percent. Smaller and medium companies up to turnover of 50 crores when we assessed were already paying nearly 30% tax. So we have brought them both at par. And Rahul, on a lighter note, I don't think any of the business industrialists you have here decides an investment based on the tax rate, because you pay tax after you make the profit. And they're all good profit making companies. They pay a small amount of tax, but they invest based on a variety of factors. As regards the excise reduction, that's exactly what the earlier government had done in 2008-9 to give a boost to the economy at that point of time. They let all the macroeconomic parameters deteriorate. Fiscal deficit went as high as 6.1%, but then you saw 6 years of pain for that short benefit that the excise reduction gave. And you saw inflation at runaway highs, double digits. You saw that it took us years to come back to fiscal prudence on current account deficit, fiscal deficit, revenue deficit. For a change, we have a government at the center which has shown the highest levels of fiscal prudence. All the 3 years in government, we have maintained very, very tight fiscal prudence. Inflation is down to under 4%. Current account deficit is down to 0.3%. Revenue deficit is at a historic 0.19%. I think this is a government which has balanced fiscal prudence with benefit to every section of society and every section of business and industry, so that all in all the nation progresses in a very, very systematic and sustainable. Well, I think the people at the higher income levels also have a conscious responsibility to the development of the economy.
And
as the economy,
you're talking about 41,000 rupees a month. That's the middle class in this country.
No, we are talking about 50 lakhs to 1
lakhs
crore.
to 1 crore.
41,000 rupee a month.
5 lakhs.
People have gained in this budget significantly. So it's only the very larger tax-paying bracket, and which, as he pointed out, the numbers is only a few lakh people.
But is that
out of the entire universe, a country of 125 crore people? I think it'll be interesting for hearing Shashi's views on what he means by jobs. Maybe in Kerala, the view is that job means a government job or a job in the formal sector alone. The world is moving differently. In fact, Mr. Bill Gates, when he was giving the Transformative India lecture, giving us new ideas, he spoke about the fourth generation where jobs are going to be largely entrepreneur-driven, are going to be self-creating jobs. And that's the focus this government has had consistently. Now, when we invest nearly 20% more in the agricultural side, the agriculture and allied sectors, when we invest 26% more in rural development schemes, when we invest 14% more and take infrastructure spending of the government to an all-time high of 3.96 lakh crores, the kind of thrust that affordable housing has been given, and I'm sure all my co-panelists will agree, housing gives you the highest multiplier. But the number of sectors where we made foreign investment easier and liberalized has grown, including defense, including railways, and almost 90% of the sectors today don't need any approval in any case. I'm on the CCEA. We hardly get any proposals of FIPB, despite the fact that FDI is at a record high. It's unprecedented levels of FDI coming into the country, because there's a lot of liberalized foreign investment permitted. There are a few things where we need, for example, defense beyond 49%. In those specific cases, there will only be one window. You will not have to go through two departments, the DIPP separately and the Finance Ministry separately. So I think there's a big step on making it faster. The Prime Minister in his first day on 15th August 2014 had acknowledged the contribution of all leaders before him. He had said this is a country which works in continuation. We are not a banana republic or a dictatorship where if governments change, everything changes, which is the strength of India, that the consistency in government policy. As regards Manrega being a monumental failure, it was a monumental failure because that money was not being accounted and was not creating assets the way it is today. Now every rupee of that goes into creating some physical infrastructure, particularly for farmers' benefit. It's geotagged and put on the website for the people of India to see. But the big picture is that in the transition period, till people get self-sufficient and stand on their own, the Prime Minister had on the floor of Lok Sabha said, I'm not going to discontinue this scheme.
No, we have to continue.
It is a recognition of the gross failure of 68 years of governments that they could not solve these problems of unemployment. But we will continue it and we'll show the people that yes, we have to continue it because of bad governance for so many years. There's only one deadline. There's been no change in any deadline. On the 15th of August 2015, from the ramparts of the Red Fort, Honorable Prime Minister announced that every remaining village, and mind you, these are the tough ones, the top of the mountain in dense Naxalite area forests, he said every one of them will be electrified in 1,000 days. That 1,000-day period ends on 1st May 2018. From that day till today, no new deadline. I wonder where you get these new deadlines from.
Okay.
Point one. Though I do believe I will do it much faster than that.
We'll see.
We set a deadline that by 2022, 15th August 2022, when India turns 75, we will make sure that every home gets 24/7 power. If you want me to list out all that it does for the farmers, it ensures that they get adequate loan facilities at very concessional rates, up to 10 lakh rupees. After this budget, they have provided almost 20% more funds in the agriculture and allied sector. It ensures that every farmer gets a soil health card, so he uses his fertilizer and water more intelligently. It ensures that e-mandis proliferate all across the country, so he can get a better value for his produce. It ensures that fertilizer is available whenever he requires it. Now you don't hear of riots like you used to earlier for lack of fertilizer. So on a series of measures, we are ensuring that the farmer's productivity increases. He has adequate availability of funds at affordable prices. We have increased the minimum wages so that their income for the labor they put in the farming sector, particularly the landless laborer, is increased by 42%, the minimum wages. Through the digitalization of the economy, we hope to ensure they get the benefits of minimum wages, healthcare, and social security. So it's a 360-degree approach. We have already announced, and Section 119 under the Income Tax Act circular is out, that anybody who joins the formal economy post November 8, even if their turnover goes up, their profit goes up, the number of labor they engage goes up, there will be no post-mortem of the past, no income tax, excise, service tax, labor department inquiries will be initiated about the past.
I need to take a very quick break.